Welcome back to this week's race recap, GVCC at West Bloomfield. Right there. There it is. West Bloomfield, April 25th. Wouldn't you believe it? It was another cold and rainy night. At least we didn't have quite as much wind as last time. So let's take a look at the course. We got an 11K loop. We did 5 laps of it tonight. And the start-finish line is right in front of a pretty quick downhill and then a short little ramp. And on the top side of the course, there is a climb named after the delicious chicken cordon bleu dinner, which is actually from the French phrase, and this is a direct translation from French, the delicious chicken ham. So that's the type of thing you tune into this channel for, intellectual nuggets like that. But the climb has a little stair step, a little bit of a break in the middle, and is probably the most decisive feature on this course. So we had 23 brave souls at the start line, which is honestly a pretty good turnout considering the weather that we had. It was just a bit above freezing, and probably on the second lap or so, we started to get some rain. So right from the start, we've got Jay Baker and Ryan rolling off the front, just to get festivities started here. And as we make the turn, see everyone's together, letting them get a little bit of a gap. This section's downhill a bit, and it's usually crosswindy, but tonight the wind was coming from a different direction. This is kind of northeast, where normally it's straight out of the west. So that was a little change from normal here. But the two start pulling out a little bit of a gap, and the group is just content to roll down the road here. About 1K later, Jan gets all antsy in his pantsy and decides he wants to go have some fun. So he blasts off up the front. Here's what it looks like from the Jan cam. Just a casual 1200 plus watts. But he gets going pretty quick here and cuts into the gap significantly. And Jan jumping off the front is going to cause everyone else to respond. Nobody wants to miss out on the fun. So things string out a little bit. We pick up some pace and very quickly cut into that gap that the two had rolled off the front. And I believe by the time we make the turn, the catch is made and we're all back together again. So yeah, just around the bend, if you look on the left side there, we got Andy, August, and Marcus taking a little bit of momentum off the front, and they get a gap, and you can see the group sitting up and letting them get up the road. At this point, I was thinking everyone's just kind of save up and blasted up cordon bleu here, but we really took it easy the first time up, which I was quite okay with. So I just took this opportunity to roll up to the front just in case things kicked off here. And I don't think they did. I guess this is notable because Warlock, Destroyer of Ramps, and Hakun the Vanquisher were both absent from the race tonight. So if Jeremy were here, I think he'd be lighting it up here and making us all very miserable. But as it stood, the group was together, taking it fairly easy up here and letting the two off the front just do their thing. We made the catch before we hit the last turn on the course. This right-hander takes us onto the finishing stretch. And Dylan lights it up here. Takes a look around, and then he goes. And he gets a pretty good gap right away. He attacks real hard. And he takes a look back, and he just keeps rolling with it. Back behind, no immediate chase from the group. We're all taking it easy here, and I'm just staying in an okay position, kind of mid-pack here. Expecting a chase at some point, and then probably more attacks, and another chase, and rinse and repeat until finally something gets away. But here you can see starting to line out a little bit. I'm going to need to slide in here and probably move up a little bit. But with the wind kind of coming cross tail here, if there's a gap, it can cause some problems. back to the on-cam. At the front of this group, you can see starting to do some work. People are rolling through, trying to squash that Dylan attack. You can see you hit the front, pull over, let the next guy come through, and yeah, this is some good cohesion to pull him back. A little further up the road, here's Jan finishing the job, putting an end to Dylan's attack. We're approaching the start-finish line. It's just probably a couple hundred meters further up the road here. But as we hit this little ramp, Dylan's attack is done and dusted. So good work by the group to pull him back. You can see the trash birds arriving at the front here to kind of get control again. And then right on cue, the 1-2. This is beautiful. Just as soon as we pull Dylan back, who races for Premium Mortgage, boom, there goes his teammate Ryan. Just a perfectly executed 1-2. Love it. But just after one lap, all back together again as Jan closes down Ryan's attack here. And now we're all back together, and you can see in my rear view here, Dylan is coming up with a little bit of momentum, and he's looking to get off the front, but he gets the door closed on him here. And he's got a choice. He could carry his momentum, violate the yellow line rule, and put everyone at risk. But he does the right thing. He pulls on the brakes, he ducks back behind his teammate, and that's just textbook good riding there. It'd be so easy to just carry on with the attack. You've already committed to spooling up. But yeah, good on Dylan there for staying safe and not taking advantage. Now we've got Griffo up the road, and Ryan decides he wants to get up there. So Ryan Fletcher gives a good dig here and gets some early separation on his way up to work with Greg. And again, no immediate response here. We got Jay on the front, just kind of looking around, pulling us along. And right about here, the Matterns decide that they want to get up there too. So you can see Craig in my rear view there. He's got his son Miles with him. Cyclocross national champion. Those guys are awesome. It's really unbelievable how many talented juniors we have coming from this area right now. Super exciting. Really nice kids too. They're all awesome. But here you can see still two up the road. Jay drops us off his wheel. What an animal. And here comes Craig Mattern and Jack Bernhardt, another extremely talented junior. And I think this one here should probably get a response from the group. When ones and twos keep pinging off the front, eventually there's going to be more firepower up the road than there's in the group, and you start to see things get welded back together a little bit. So there's Ryan Seal and Jerfy, just kind of making sure no big gaps open up there. So we ride that into the bottom of the hill, and there goes Miles. He puts in a big dig there. He is flying up this climb, and he will very quickly get to the front of the race where we had Griffo and Ryan Fletcher. You can see everyone else is just kind of tempoing up the climb here. Miles reaches the two of them and attacks right over the top. That's a great move. It shows that he really wants to get up the road. And he's just starting to approach the top of the first step of this two-step climb. And yeah, we're all here just kind of keeping it together. We can still see him, but not killing ourselves up the climb, but definitely keeping the pressure on for sure. And this is a little deceptive. It's still climby, but you start to see it kind of level off a little bit. And so many times I've gotten to this point and think, oh yeah, here's the top of the climb. And then you look up the road and you're like, oh crap, no, there's still more to this. So yeah, letting them go up the road. Everyone's just kind of going easy now on this middle part of the climb. Just kind of biding our time, waiting to see if someone attacks across next or if we start to get an organized chase going. And of course, Craig on the front, not going to do too much work with his son up the road. He's just looking around. And here we approach the bottom slopes of the second step. And I suspect right here we'll kick off again. You can see the 2 guys up the road. 3 guys up the road. I can count. Yeah, and there goes Dylan. And Jerfy. Cardona. Who else we got? Look at Paul throwing down a solid 800 watts. What a champ. All right, so 1 guy caught. We got Griffo back. Got Jack and Marcus kicking. And I think the other 2 stay off the front here for just a bit longer. But yeah, a little bit more pressure in the group now. Oh yeah, there they are, caught right there. So back together. We got 40K to go. And yeah, we're having fun playing bikes. Here Dylan decides to go yet again, keeping the racing spicy. And he attacks just before the turn, which allows him to carry a good amount of speed and take a good line through here. And you can see we still had a pretty sizable group here. Almost done with 2 laps out of this 5-lap race. So with Dylan having a small gap there, the Prez decides he wants to go and everything lines out again. So this attack gets neutralized, things get strung out. I find a spot to hide here behind Marcus. And as soon as he's caught, everyone kind of sits up a little bit. Jerfy and Jan have a little bit of momentum, but nothing carries on right there. And everyone kind of looks around and wait to see who's going to go next. And surprise, surprise, Dylan takes a look and he pops off again. What a legend. Oh, here we are on the 3rd lap, and I had an awesome piece of advice from one of the first cycling people I had ever met through GVCC, Kevin Howard. He said, not so pro tip, stop getting dropped and you'll be able to attack instead of bridging back in. He said, if you're strong enough to chase back on, it means you're strong enough to attack. And I didn't really think about it like that. I just always felt like, man, I'm getting dropped. This sucks. I'm terrible. So here I took K-How's advice and pushed on a little bit through this turn. I've got Marcus on my wheel, and here comes Marty, and we're getting a little bit of a gap here. And Marty comes through here, and he goes into hero mode. And he just starts hauling ass down the road here into the wind. You can see we're getting a gap. The group is starting to sit up a little bit and let us go. And that is awesome news. So with Marty and I up the road, and we've got Jan and Paul in the group here, Craig Mattern kicks, and he wants to get across to us. You can see Jack thought about it, but didn't end up going with him. It would have been real fun to have Jack up there. But again, no response from the group. And now we are a group of 3 up the road, and these guys sit up and give us a little bit of leash. And here's Craig just zooming across to us, and Marty still doing hero work on the front. And the 3 of us work together pretty well. I was definitely hurting a bit and the weakest in this group, but I was committed to it. I wanted to do everything I could to make this successful. And with Marty taking pulls like this, we were off to an awesome start. Back in the group, Craig has 2 teammates on the front, soft pedaling here. Jan's on the front, soft pedaling here. And finally, I think there's a bit of a response, but not before the group had given us a good amount of time. I think the most time we ended up with was about 35 seconds on the road, which is a pretty good gap. But here, yeah, on the stairs, Jerfy, Dylan, we got Jack, Marcus, here comes Paul and Jan. Doing a good job just chasing people. I'm sure they're going to be just lead weights on the back wheel of anyone who wants to get across to us here. Okay, these guys are still hammering now. They'd already given us our gap, so they're going to try to eat into it now. You can see it's Dylan on the front doing the lion's share of the work. He was super aggressive this race, and every race. It's a lot of fun racing with him. Yeah, just cresting the bottom half of this climb, It levels out a bit here again, and you can just about see my blinky up the road. It would still be a few minutes before we pulled out our maximum gap, but at least at this point we had a good head start on the climbs here. And I'd expect this group to kick again pretty hard once they hit the second part of the stair step, but for now, yeah, they're letting us go again, which was great news for the three of us up the road. So with our gap, we were working well. Coming through to turn 3 here. Each of us were taking our turns. Again, I definitely felt like I was the weakest in this group, and Marty by far did the most work in this group. But we each took turns, we played nice, and it was a lot of fun to be in a breakaway that was all working together. So here's setting up for the last turn on lap 3, which is a Pream lap, and Dylan kicks off, and Jan chases him right down. Playing the good teammate, jumping on these attacks, and just being an anchor. You can see Dylan and Jan attacked hard enough to pull 4 people clear. So they just press on a little bit here, up this little tiny ramp, and here you can see you got, looks like Miles and Jack with them. And Paul doesn't want to miss out, so he zooms across to these guys also. I believe the group at this point was probably about 6. And you can just about see our blinky lights up there in the distance. So we've got Jan and Paul staying on wheels, covering moves, and then the 2 youngsters decide to kick here. And Dylan gives Jan some room, and Jan kicks off in pursuit. Seriously, what an animal. That's just dropping 1,000 watts at will, holding on to it. He will very quickly get up to these 2 guys. And we don't have too much of a gap left, but we still have enough. Probably a good 15 seconds up the road there. And this is a Pream lap, so there are 2 and 1 points on offer on the line. And once he gets up here, he just kind of sits on and lets the youngsters do the work. Paul comes through here, which is a little curious. You'd hope not to have teammates chasing you down, but maybe the tactic with 2 points on the line here and Jan having the biggest sprint, maybe if they catch us at the line here, we can maximize points for Jan, which would be awesome. But yeah, not super expecting to see 2 teammates working to pull you back. But wouldn't you know it, they timed the catch perfect, and they set up Jan, out sprinting Miles here to pick up the 2 Pream points, and most importantly, set up the race winning move. That's right, with 2 laps to go, Jan and Miles said, "Smell you later" to the rest of the group, and they rode off into the sunset. Super strong ride from both of them to stay away from the group the rest of the way. So here you can see the 2 of them riding off the front, and now the group comprises of the 3 of us from the break: Paul, Ryan Fletcher, Dylan, Jack, and Jerfy. So again, now with Paul and I having a teammate up the road, and Craig's got his son up there, to be determined whether he's going to chase Miles for the extra workout. But yeah, we should have decent numbers in this group now to be able to cover moves and hopefully put something together late in the race. Up front, Jan and Miles were cruising, working really well together and pulling out a very large gap. Like I said, they'd hold this one all the way to the line. So a really incredible ride from each of them. Kudos to both of you guys. Behind, we didn't have a lot of impetus to chase, and a few more folks joined our group. You can see Marcus in the rear view there. We got the Prez with us, and can't quite make out who else is. I think Zach's in here. So yeah, our group grew a little bit in size, but didn't have a ton of chase in us. Now onto the last lap. I'm taking to heart Kevin's advice again and deciding to push on a little bit here and stretch my legs and see what I can do. Yeah, Kevin was one of the first guys I met when I first contacted the GVCC and said I wanted to play bikes. I knew very little about riding bikes and even less about racing them, but Kevin was super kind, he was very welcoming, and made it feel a whole lot less intimidating as a new rider to be joining this club of people that all seemed like maniacs to me. So anytime I meet a new member or someone who's interested in joining the club, I try to act more like Kevin and be super welcoming because it made a difference and it's part of what makes this club so great. So yeah, thanks for being such a great club. Man, I love you guys. Well, I got caught. And then a little bit later, Marcus decides to go and I'm already in a box. So man, I gotta try it again. So try to smoothly zoom over to Marcus here. And the two of us get a little gap and put in some turns together. And at this point, man, I've had a hard race. I was happy to be off the front instead of off the back. And I'm just gonna do what I can to ride hard to the finish. So yeah, here we go. Marcus and I, a group of, I don't know, 6 or 7 behind us. And we pulled out a small handful of seconds, but man, I was already cooked at this point. Back at the front of the race, just over 2K to go. And Miles is a strong dude, but he knows he cannot bring Jan to a sprint. So Miles uses one of the rises here, about 2K out, to put in a huge dig. And he was able to hold off Jan and take the W. Incredible ride, Miles. Really well done. And Jan, awesome second place. You were flying, man. So back in the battle for third, I found myself on the front on this downhill section, and Marcus comes through, and I'm thinking, all right, let's just see what we can do here. And full disclosure, I totally forgot that there's 2 rises before the finish line, because I'm not very bright. And as we hit this one, I'm thinking, oh yeah, the line's just up here, so let's just give it a whack. Instead of working with Marcus like I should have done. Yeah, so I went all in here and died 100 deaths. I was able to hold it until about 200 to go. And then Ryan Fletcher, just Atlas 5 rocket. Just blowing my doors off, making me look like I'm going in reverse. And here's the field sprint from the drone. Thanks again to Paul and Chelsea from North Glow Photography. You guys are awesome. But that was a super fun race. It was really nice to be aggressive, to be off the front instead of off the back. And here's our podium. Miles, Jan, and Ryan, top 3. Here's the rest. We got Dylan, Jerfy, Craig, the Prez, Paul, Dave, and myself. And here are the standings, both before and after some points. Check it out, my man Jan, jumping up into first. Well, that's it for this week. I appreciate you guys watching, and we will be back next week when we race in Mendon. Keep playing bikes. See ya.